Well, we are, but
You are.
So don't take your shirt off.
No, take your shirt
You know
off.
what?
Not
Right. Take your shirt
It's
off.
not. It's not ruling anything out, guys.
That's an OnlyFans.
This is our city, and nobody gonna dictate our freedom.
For the first time in 39 years, the Boston Bruins have won the Stanley Cup.
Anything's possible!
Ladies and gentlemen, if there's one thing we can all agree on, it's that the world needs more podcasts. And here to fill that gaping void, we are the Sons of Bellhorn. This is the inaugural debut episode of the Sons of Bellhorn podcast. Thank you for welcoming us into your ears. My name is Matt Waymire from my humble abode in New Jersey. I am joined by my tag team partner, Steve Sheely, from his humble abode in Connecticut, and Darwin Zook from his humble abode, his cozy surroundings in New York. Now, you might be thinking, one dude in New Jersey, one in New York, one in Connecticut, talking Boston sports. Little odd, but to me, that just speaks to the scope and the reach of Boston sports and Boston fandom. That's what we're talking about. I want to bring these guys in because I'm by far the least important of this trio. I want to start with Steve Sheely because he, like me, a father of two, and he, like me, maybe a little exhausted right now because just put the kids to bed, but I'm getting fired up again to talk Boston sports, and to see your guys' faces too is invigorating me. Steve Sheely, talk to me.
It's nice, buddy. Yeah, it's very nice. You know, like we have been on a text thread for the last year or two, and you know, like everyone else, we have not left the house. I have to wrap up and saran wrap just to go get some bread. So it's nice to actually see some smiling faces here and hear your voices, the dulcet tones of Matt Waymire, the booming vocals of Darwin Zook, as everyone is about to experience. Ladies and gentlemen, you're in for a treat right now because it's my turn to pass the mic over to Darwin Zook. Although before I do, I just want to say, Waymire called everyone out where we are. I'm the only one in New England right now. That's
true. I got to give you major props for that because you get bonus points for that. But Darwin, yes, as Steve alluded to, the booming voice. And for those that don't have for those listening, don't have the benefit of video, I want to just describe Darwin here. Picture Luka Garza, okay? If he was a little bigger, a little more muscular, and a lot better at basketball, you would have Darwin Zook, ladies and gentlemen. So with that, Darwin, take it away, my friend.
That's impossible to follow that intro. My goodness. You guys are killing me. But yeah, podcast, the world needs more of that, and the world needs more Boston sports, like you said. You can't get enough Boston sports, and I can't get enough complaining about Boston sports in the last couple of years. And I'm sure we're going to get into this more in depth, but I have a lot to get off my chest about what's been going on with Boston sports over the last couple of years. And I know the world doesn't want to hear it because there's a lot of titles in Beantown since, the year 2001 when the Patriots finally broke through and the Red Sox in 2004. But in the last few years, it's starting to go downhill. It's starting to come back around that cycle. And I'm not pleased about it. So I'm sure we're going to touch on that.
And the funny part here is that when we were having kind of our pre-show meeting and we're discussing our format and our rundown, what we're going to discuss a guy who is not a Boston athlete anymore, but he's the quintessential champion, winner, and icon in Boston sports. I want to start, of course, with the GOAT, Tom Brady, coming off his 7th Super Bowl. And one thing I want to point out too.
I don't want to cut you off. I thought you were talking about Vinny Testaverde.
You know what? I wouldn't give him GOAT status, but what's the next thing down from GOAT?
Could be feeding a goat right now.
Feeding a goat, possibly. We love Vinny, former Miami Hurricane. That's right. My hometown, not my hometown, but I was born in Miami. But I'm getting off track here. Let's talk about the GOAT because one thing that I should point out is that I love my Celtics, my Red Sox, and my Bruins. I somehow didn't become a Patriots fan. That was a major mistake because I kind of took the lead from my family members who made me a Boston sports fan many too many years ago. Didn't latch onto the Patriots. I'm kind of paying for it now. So as a non-Patriots fan, I want to hear from you guys who have lived and breathed Patriots for all your lives. How happy are you for Tom Brady? How happy are you for a guy to see him go to another team and be as successful as he was with your team? Because I'm genuinely curious to know about that.
Matt, honestly, I don't know how Sheely's going to weigh in on this, but if you root for a guy, right, and a team for a long period of time, you become attached to not only the color of that uniform and the laundry, if you will, you become attached to those certain players. And when one of those players literally leads you to 6 Super Bowl titles, when he leaves through no fault of his own, because he wasn't given a contract by the team to stay, and goes and wins another one, of course you're rooting for that guy. If Patriot fans aren't rooting for Tom Brady, then they were never Patriot true fans to begin with. You can't let the guy go who won 6, goes and gets a 7 somewhere else and say, I wasn't really rooting for him, I was rooting against him. To me, it's a no-brainer. You have to root for that guy. That's the guy that helped bring you all that joy, all those Super Bowl parties, all those time getting together with friends and watching those big games. He was the leader, more than Belichick, that brought that team together. So he goes somewhere else. Yes, 100% you're rooting for that guy. No question.
I'm looking at Steve Sheely's face, and let's get the rebuttal.
Where's the why grown? I don't understand.
Yeah. No, honestly, I do mostly agree with you. Mostly, I will say. I'm gonna clarify that in a second. But yes, of course, Tom Brady has been with us since the early days, 2001, right?
Since you were a child.
Yeah, I was like 7 years old at that point. And I'm gonna let, because no one can see the wrinkles of the crow's feet. Hopefully they believe that. I love Tom Brady. Tom Brady is, I've got like 3 or 4 jerseys of his that I can't wear anymore because I'm an old man. But I love Tom Brady. He's the best quarterback I'll ever root for. That is the best player, NFL player I will ever root for. Probably the best athlete I will ever root for. Very few times and very few sports franchises have the ability to say that I rooted for the best player to ever play that sport. New England Patriots fans can say that. That's a really cool thing, and that just doesn't go away because he moves down south, because he retired, because he's 7,000 years old.
So why the groan then?
The groan is because you have to have a little bit in you saying, yeah, I'm happy for him, but I'm not so happy for me. I'm still a Patriots fan. I can't turn that off. I'm not going to turn that off. Listen, no matter how old I will be, I will always be a Patriots fan. And when I watch the Patriots go through the falling off the cliff of the year that they just had, it's a little bittersweet. I mean, it's like having an ex-girlfriend go out and date someone who's younger, better looking, and has more money than you, and you liked her.
Zook would know nothing about that, but I see your point.
No one leaves Zook. But
I'm blushing, Matt.
You can watch her go, and you can be happy for her if it ended on amicable terms. But at some point, you're still going to say, "Man, we had a good thing, baby. Why'd you go?"
But Sheely, who do you blame in that situation?
I'm with you. I don't even necessarily blame Belichick. It's obviously Belichick's the person who made this happen. Kraft didn't want this to happen. It seems like, I don't even go that far. Brady kind of wanted it to happen because of Belichick. I certainly, if you're going to go down that road of who's to blame, then yes, it is probably Bill Belichick's fault. But can you really blame the guy for pushing out a quarterback who's this old? We've never seen anything like this in the history of the game, a quarterback succeeding. And especially, you just saw what happened last season. He wasn't exactly kicking doors in and taking the league by storm because he didn't have the help around him. So what are you going to do by extending this guy? If he was on the Patriots this year, they would have done the exact same thing they did the previous year.
7-9?
The first round exit in the playoffs. They didn't have the help around him. And especially, no one could foresee the COVID thing with players holding out. But they didn't have the team. Look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. That team was stacked. I would kill for one of those wide receivers. They had 3 of them.
Yeah, I think when you have something going great with the greatest of all time, you try and continue that for as long as possible. And Belichick, he's always trying to get rid of someone before they get past their prime. That we know. He's done that with a million players, Wes Welker, going back to Richard Seymour, all these different Patriots, where he says, let's cut ties a year early instead of a year late. That's Belichick's strategy. Generally, it works. But when you have a guy like Brady, when in 2014 you draft Jimmy Garoppolo, or in 13, going into the 13-14 Seahawks Super Bowl when the Patriots won, he was already trying to push Brady out the door, and Brady was able to fight that off.
But again, can you blame him? Can you blame him? Who could have foreseen Brady winning 3 more Super Bowls?
Well, then the proof's in the pudding, though. When you win a couple of them, then you give the guy the contract. That you don't keep going year by year and trying to lower his contract every time.
He ain't getting any younger. It's not like he's getting younger from year to year. At some point, you have to think the magic's going to wear off.
Yeah, but why anticipate that when you have a guy who's been there for 20 years? At some point, you have to make an exception for certain athletes over time. The Bulls handled it wrong with Jordan, too. Should they have let him go on the 6th?
One thing I want to ask you guys, and this is something I should have looked up, but I was a little lazy, I guess. It seemed like Cam Newton pre-COVID was doing pretty well, not setting the world on fire, not giving anyone Patrick Mahomes flashbacks or comparisons, but it seemed like he was doing okay. It was, I mean, to you guys, pre-COVID and post-COVID, I mean, was this just a complete 180 from him?
Yeah, I mean, I look at it, I don't know if it's COVID or not. Obviously, there is a huge, huge factor that COVID is playing, right? But how much of it was COVID and how much of it was his shoulder falling off? That seems to be what happened. He got a little bit banged up and wasn't able to throw the ball. I mean, if you look at Patriots Nation, and week 2 or week 3, I'm forgetting off the top of my head when the week was, from then forward, we were doing somersaults. We were like, oh my God, we have, maybe not Zook because he's got a little fanboy on Tom Brady, but the rest of Patriots Nation was, doing flips thinking, oh my God, we have Cam Newton. We lucked out. We've got the guy who's going to take us even further than what Tom Brady was able to take us last year. And then he was unable to throw the ball further than 5 yards downfield.
I think it's the shoulder too. I mean, I'm with you there, Sheila. We can agree on that point. I think, yeah, COVID plays a factor. We don't know all the effects and how that plays out over time. There's still studies and all that, but it does seem, you see with Jason Tatum with the Celtics, he looked lethargic for several weeks after he had COVID. Yeah. So certainly there's an effect, but to me, I think it goes back to your original point about Newton's shoulder, and he can't throw the ball downfield. COVID doesn't prevent you from just stepping up in the pocket and not being able to throw more than 40 yards down the field. I mean, most quarterbacks now Patrick Mahomes can sling it off his back foot 60 yards. And like you said, you don't have to be Mahomes, but Newton's arm strength diminished greatly. If you can't throw a 10-yard out and put it there on someone's chest when he's open, you got a real problem. He was throwing ground balls, by the middle of the season.
It was kind of sad to watch at the end. Like you said, he was just skipping balls that any other quarterback, Chad Pennington could have made.
Ooh, that's cold. That's cold. Let's see what steps the Patriots take moving forward. I think one thing we can all agree is that, despite the down year, and Darwin, you said it, you have your issues with Belichick. I'm sure a lot of fans do, but there's no questioning he is the guy to lead this team. He is the guy to make the decisions. He's the guy you put your trust in. Can we say the same thing about Brad Stevens? I think that's the next big question. Darwin, I know you've made your feelings very clear in our Sons of Bellhorn group chat over the years about Brad Stevens. I think the bloom is off the rose. Yes, to put it mildly, I agree. The bloom is off the rose a little bit. Going forward, is he the guy? If this team is going to hang banner 18, will he be the guy at the helm to do it?
I don't think Zook has ever met a coach or manager that he actually did like. I think that's the problem. Listen, you could say a lot about what Brad Stevens has done this year or has not done, and a lot of it would honestly be fair. But what wouldn't be fair is hanging on him the roster construction. They do have some talented players in there, but their depth is really not there. Look at their players 4 through 12 down the line. It's most of them. Shemi Ojale is not an NBA player. He's not an NBA player, and he's probably the best player that they have on their bench.
Scary thought.
That is a scary thought, and I do. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a tough one, Sheely, because you don't want to just blame the coach. Like, the way I look at coaching a lot is how do they handle pressure moments, right? How do they handle like the biggest moments? And that's my beef with Stevens. Is I feel like he's good at calling plays out of timeouts. That's been scripted, but getting his team up for like a big game, like the Miami Heat, when it's right there in front of your face and you have a couple games to win to get to the finals in a wide open Eastern Conference in the bubble last year, and he can't get his team over the top. And I understand the excuses, young talent. Brown and Tatum, your two best players, are young. Hayward's hurt, a lot of different factors. But and I think Stevens gets some of the blame along with the general manager, Danny Ainge, because some of Ainge's draft picks, as good as they've been in the top 6 when he's drafted Smart, Tatum, Brown, good draft picks. But some of those later picks really haven't contributed from last year. Neesmith to even Robert Williams is finally coming on, but he was supposed to be like, wow, we found Robert Williams at 20. This guy is going to be huge for us. And finally, he's showing something. So I think Ainge deserved, if the pie is 50-50, Ainge, Stevens, in terms of why this team has underachieved so far. The jury's still out, but at this point, they've underachieved, I think, even with the talent level they have now.
I'll tell you what. We've been talking, Zook and I have been talking a lot about the Patriots, right? Because we're both Patriots fans, and this is Waymire's time to shine here. He is also a Celtics fan. I'd love to hear his opinion on this.
Well, as far as Stevens goes, I see both sides of the argument. I think I would tilt a little more towards supporting him for the mere fact that, and I'm not saying that one player makes a team or one player makes this much of an impact or a difference, but Marcus Smart, that has been such a huge loss for this team. And, I've seen, certain pundits on certain networks over the weeks, question the team's effort and heart and desire and how it's not there. And when they say all these things, I just think to myself, well, those are all Marcus Smart attributes and traits and abilities. And to not have him on the floor, I just think has created such a domino effect. I mean, we've seen in the games leading up to the All-Star break, Tatum and Brown, they had some clunkers. I mean, but on one hand, I can't blame them. We brought up at the top of the podcast that, Tatum battling some COVID issues. And then on top of that, carrying this huge load minutes wise and shot wise. And I mean, they had some very poor shooting performances because there's been such a minutes load and such a burden on each of these guys. And I just think that not having Marcus Smart has hurt in so many ways. And listen, we all love Marcus, but nobody, and I mean nobody, loves Marcus Smart the way that Darwin Zuck loves Marcus Smart. So Darwin, I would think that you support me on this. And I think it's until Marcus comes back, until he's 100% and doing Marcus Smart things, it's going to be a rather incomplete, unfair assessment of just what we think about Brad Stevens' job. That's my opinion on that.
I just got a neck spasm from nodding so hard during the last 2 minutes of that. That is tremendous. I don't even know where to go from there. But, I echo it completely. When your heart and soul of your team is out for that long a period of time, especially the guy that, he's had some issues at times with Brown and on-court things. They've gone back and forth. But I feel like Brown and Tatum need a little push sometimes, and Stevens isn't always the guy to give him that push. That's just not his style of coaching. And I do respect Stevens and what he's done and what he did at Butler and what he's done now with the Celtics, even though I disagree with some of his big game moves. But he's not the kind of coach that's going to get in someone's ass, at least from what I've seen, and say, hey, we got to win this game. You got to score 30 tonight. You got to find a way to lead this team. That's just not the way he is. I feel like Smart is the guy on the team in the organization that can do that. That's why I hear about these trade rumors involving Smart. I'm like, are you crazy? He's the guy right now that's going to help motivate Brown and Tatum and really kind of compliment them, not just on the court, but emotionally in terms of who they are to make this team get to the next level. So I know they got a big one with the Nets, going on, and then they got some other games coming up, and Smart's back. So we'll see how that all translates.
If anyone's made himself some money just from not playing the game of basketball in the last few weeks, it's Marcus Smart. He's, like, to your points, he has shown his worth in spades. And believe it or not, he actually just hit the craziest circus shot that you can imagine him making. So the thing about Marcus Smart is 90% of the time he's fantastic. He's your favorite player. He's awesome. He's great. And then they're down by 2 points with 40 seconds left, and he pulls up with a 40-footer with no one under the rim, and you just think, why?
Heat check, Shealy. Heat check.
Yeah, but
that's like old Antoine Walker stuff. You love 20. You just come down from 35 and let it fly.
I did love Twan. In fact, my old 8 Twan jersey is still relevant because we got Kemba, who can, he's gimping a little bit, but he's okay.
Number 8 Walker.
He's okay. Former UConn, stand up.
That's right. That's right. No, I agree with all of it. That Sheila, you nailed it. If there's a guy who has proven his worth by not playing and by being in the street clothes for the better part of 2 months now, it is certainly Marcus Smart. So, as we sit here yammering away, they're giving the Nets, maybe the hottest team in basketball, everything they can handle at the Barclays Center. So, we'll see how that plays out. One guy that I think we have to bring up, and that's been such a huge X factor. Well, I shouldn't say an X factor because he's not a Celtic anymore. Gordon Hayward. Losing him, I think, look, I was among those who kind of scoffed and laughed at the notion like, wait a minute, he got how much money from the Charlotte Hornets? Are you kidding me? Well, I think he's shut up a lot of people because he has been Utah Jazz Gordon Hayward this year for Charlotte. He's been that good. But the thing that I keep coming back to is he's playing a leading role alongside LaMelo Ball, who's also just been bonkers amazing this year and is going to be the runaway rookie of the year. He's playing a leading role for that team. He would not have played the same role with the Celtics team. He was going to be at best third banana and probably fourth behind Kemba. So I think that for as much as people lament his loss in this production, I don't think he's putting up Charlotte numbers in a Celtics uniform this year. You guys agree?
Yeah, I think it was never going to work, though. I'm torn on it. I agree with your point that Hayward, they could use him, no question right now. It was just another piece, but he wasn't going to get the type of shots and sort of be in control of the offense the way I think he likes to be, the way he was with the Jazz. He was really the best player with the Jazz when he was there, and now along with Ball, but Ball's a rookie, Hayward's really kind of the leader on that team and the best overall player on that team. So he wasn't going to get those same opportunities, and I don't think he wanted to be in a mentor role for Brown and Tatum. The way Hayward looks at it, despite that gruesome injury a couple of years ago, he's still in his prime. So, he wanted to move on, and I think what the Celtics did wrong is they overplayed their card when they could have dealt him and got something back from Indiana, and they kind of ended up with nothing except this trade exception. But that's kind of a tangent. I agree with you, Matt. They could use Hayward now, and he's doing well with the Hornets. What a first-round matchup that could be. Hornets-Celtics could be a first-round matchup. Rozier, Hayward going up against, they think they have something to prove? I mean, wow.
I think if you look at any one thing, you look at Gordon Hayward in his games he's played, right? 72 games his rookie year, 66, 72, 77, 76, 80, 73, 1. Guess what year that was? Yeah, right. That was 1 minute, right? Or 5 minutes.
Right.
He was snake bit. It wasn't going to work in Boston. Sometimes you need to change your real estate in order to get your groove back, right? And honestly, I view him a lot like I view Tom Brady. I'm happy for him. I want him to succeed. I don't want him to win a first-round series against the Celtics, but I want him to succeed. The one guy you guys are leaving off is Terry Rozier. Scary Terry is also cracking it down in Charlotte. He's been pretty good. In fact, you could make the case he's been better than Kemba.
I think you can make a strong case. He's been better than Kemba. Kemba, in fairness, has been better lately. The last 3 or 4 games heading into the All-Star break, he looked like Kemba Walker, like All-Star Kemba Walker. But I agree with you that overall, he's certainly, meaning Rozier, he's certainly been healthier. He's certainly been more overall productive. So yeah, if you had a choice between, which guy would you want from the get-go this year, I would have to pick Rozier. And, he was a lot of fun to have around.
Oh yeah, he was a blast in Game 7 against the Cavs. I'm still emotionally scarred.
Can we talk about that a little bit?
Darwin? Can
we actually talk about that? Because that was the game that almost made Zook rip his shirt off and kill every one of us.
Well, hey, good thing we weren't all in the same room. Yeah, could have been a problem. Yeah, it was Game 7 against the Cavs. You guys, the year was 2017? No, 2018. It was one of those 2 years. Game 7 against the Cavs. LeBron in his final year with the Cavs, and the Celtics had a great opportunity in that series to take it in 7. And Brad Stevens, again, and I go back to big game moments. I question his substitution patterns. I question his game plans. I feel he's been outcoached in big games. Terry Rozier, go look at the stat sheet. I honestly think it was like 3 of 15 he shot from the floor.
He had a John Starks night, didn't he?
Yeah, and yet he didn't have the pedigree yet, Rozier, to leave him out there. What is Terry Rozier? It's not like you're leaving, I don't know, pick any superstar, even like a guy like Donovan Mitchell. If he's 3 for 14, he's not coming out of the game because he's the Jazz's main guy and they're going to keep going to him. Terry Rozier wasn't the Celtics' main guy, and he was 3 of 15, and Brad Stevens kept sticking with him. And I think, that soured me towards Rozier. That being said, he's improved quite a bit in his time so far with Charlotte. I don't know. Sometimes it takes me back to Stevens and how you started this off, Matt. I question him in big games. If the Celtics get back somehow this year, they win a first-round series, right? Then they have to go up against, say, Philly and the Nets. If they're in like a Game 7 against Philly, do you trust that Stevens is going to have the game plan and the idea? Do you double Embiid? Do you let him get 50? Whatever it is, I don't know if I trust Stevens to execute that type of game plan because to me, he's shown he doesn't win those type of games.
Who are you replacing him with, though? Like, that's always been the key to me. Like, if you're going to say to me, I don't like Stevens, I don't want him as the coach of the Celtics, who are you replacing him with? Because who are you going to bring in? Kurt Rambis? There are so many coaches out there where you're thinking, my God, this guy can't tie his shoes, right?
Listen, Bill Fitch isn't walking through that door, okay? Let's be honest. He's not walking through that door.
Let me back it up a little bit. So I was kind of alluding to something I kind of wanted to talk about. You said group therapy. This is our therapy, right? We could talk about things. This is a safe space, right? Okay, so here we are. I don't know the year because time is a flat circle now. But that's what happened. We were all in this group chat. That's how we've been communicating for the last number of years. This group chat every single night. Boston sports team is on. Celtics are on. What are we talking about? We're killing each other. We're killing this guy. We're killing that guy. We're praising this guy. We're going nuts. We're fans, right? We're enjoying the game. And there was one thing that happened, and it was the Celtics game. And I think it was the year that Tatum dunked on LeBron late in the game, and then became allergic to the ball after that. And the Celtics lost. They lost to the Cavs, right?
Right, same game. Yeah.
So we're all after the game. We're heartbroken. We're big Celtics fans, so we're texting with each other and we're going back and forth and saying, God, it's that stunk. That was too bad. The Celtics, they're just too young. Tatum, Brown, they're babies. They'll have plenty of time to get back. And Zook lost his mind and started yelling at us. I think I got called names I have never been called in my life before.
Well, it was in a text thread, so how much yelling? I mean, how many exclamations?
Everything was in caps.
It was caps.
Caps, emojis.
They were scream texted. I think Darwin has, you don't understand, Darwin has 17 phones, and he just types so hard, he breaks through a phone, and then has to get to his burner, his backup.
This one actually is broken. One thing I never told you guys about why that occurred is I thought I was smart enough to put, when the Celtics, they weren't predicted to go to the finals, right, that year at all. It was the cap. No. I put a nice, you guys didn't know this, I put a nice $50 wager on the Celtics to go to the finals, like literally before Christmas. It was like 50 to win. I believe it was like 1,100, 1,200, because they really weren't, they were like the fifth rated team in the East in terms of their, terms of the odds to get to the finals. So Brad Stevens, as far as I'm concerned, owes me money, and he blew it in that game. So I took out my Stevens anger on you guys.
That boy took your money. That boy took your money.
He did.
And so in this public forum, I will apologize to you guys for taking out my anger on you when it really should have been directed at Golly G. Whitaker's Brad Stevens, Golly G. Shucks in Boston, who, doesn't curse and doesn't get fired up for anything. So I felt I had to do the firing up for him.
And no one gets more fired up than you, and that's what we love about you. But I'll tell you what, you could say all you want about Brad Stevens and not having emotion and not really going through those fire it up speeches, right? From everything I've heard, he is pretty hard on them when we don't see them. Like, he is getting in, I don't want to use the phrase that you used before so colorfully, getting in their, we'll call it personal space.
There we go.
And there's the difference between me and Sheely, right?
But
in one perfect illustration. I love it.
You know who he does remind me of? And it's another Indiana guy, Larry Bird. Look at Larry Bird when he was the coach of the Indiana Pacers. They hit a game-winning shot. Everyone is going nuts in the arena. Larry Bird is just stoic, staring down his team like, yep.
Yeah, well, He's also the guy in 87 when, or 80, no, it was 85 when they were down to the Lakers 2-1. And in the locker room, he goes, "We're just playing like a bunch of pansies out there. That's our problem."
Yeah.
So Bird would get in people's asses too, or in their personal space.
My point is, he was a player at that point, right? So I think right now, he is leaning on the Marcus Smarts of the team to get into other people's business and really take them to task. It's hard for, I don't know how tall he is, whatever. We'll call him a 6-foot white guy who's he's probably not even middle-aged. He's what? He's young, right? But anyway,
he's 10 years younger than all of us, isn't he?
Yeah, there you go. He's barely older than any of his players, but it's hard for him to get up in people's faces and yell at them and say, "Whoa, why didn't you do that?" And he's never been able to do that in his life. It's a lot easier for Marcus Smart to get up in them and say, "Yo, you need to get to work. We need you here." Or, whatever colorful language you want to use, getting up in people's...
Yeah, I agree. I think, and Sheila, you said it. There is so much that we don't see. You watch a 2-hour broadcast of a game and you think to yourself that all the ins and outs of what's going on and how a certain coach or a certain player interacts with his players or his teammates. That's maybe 5% of what goes on. You don't see what goes on in the locker room, on a team flight, after practice, text messages, phone calls. I mean, we talk about practice. Yeah.
No, I think that's a good point, Matt. Yeah, you don't always see those stories behind the scenes. I guess just in those big games, even the X's and O's bother me. I'm just repeating myself. But in some of those big moments, I'd like to see Stevens win one of those big games where maybe they're even slightly underdogs and he comes through with a game plan or something to shut someone else down. But we'll see. I mean, this is the year where they're going to be underdogs in a couple series if it gets that far in the playoffs.
Hey, Zook, you just mentioned something a little while ago that I'd like to touch back on if we could. You were talking about money. You were talking about winning a little bit of money. Is there any other story you could possibly tell us where you won a little bit of scratch here and there?
Yeah. Well, to make up for that, Steven, thanks for bringing it up. I mean, before the season, I put a nice wager down on the Bucks and Chiefs, and it paid out quite lovely for them to make the Super Bowl. And then I also had a second wager for the Bucks to win the Super Bowl, both of which was a nice return on investment, considering total I put down $75 and got back a nice $2,400 on those two bets combined. So not bad at all.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's being modest. He's got millions. He financed his third home right now because of this bet.
I mean, I want to point out that I lied at the top of the podcast when I said that Darwin was joining us from his New York, humble abode. He's really on his private yacht in the Bahamas because from all the money he made on the Brady bets. So, Darwin, I didn't want to blow up your spot at the top of the show, but now that we're discussing this, I figure I can't lie anymore.
Yeah, those aren't car horns going by. That's the waves just rippling right there.
Exactly.
As long as it's not Mar-a-Lago.
Oh man, are we going there?
Oh well, we can go anywhere. Yeah.
I don't know if it's that kind of podcast.
Not yet, but hey, it could turn into anything. I do want to take a moment to give what the kids call a shout out to two fine young men who are kind of steering the ship on this experiment, Tim McMaster and Raz Guevara, and both of whom that we know quite well from our days working at Chelsea Market with Major League Baseball Advanced Media. That was kind of the genesis of this whole thing. That's how we got to know each other. And you know what? I find myself at times thinking about those days and maybe not missing them per se, because I think all five of us are in very good places right now in our professional lives. But you know what? For all the good or bad and all the warts that came with that certain position, we all met each other. And I'm going to get sentimental here and just say that thank God for that, because it has been an enduring friendship throughout these years. I started there in, my goodness, what year was it? 2012, I think. Yeah, 2012. Got let go in early 18, but those 6 years, just fantastic. And even though Roz roots for the stinking Yankees, we still love the guy, and he is part of this project. And what was great about MLB was that you had us, the resident Red Sox fans. Obviously, you got your Yankees fans, Mets fans, and you go back and forth and debate and banter and this, that, and the other. but we all bonded through a love of baseball and just a love of sports in general. And I think that, to have a forum right now where it's just us cool Red Sox fans to be able to talk about our team. But Darwin, you mentioned that, watching baseball these days, not as much fun as it used to be, right?
No, it's really not. And one of the main reasons I love the Red Sox in the 2000s, and it wasn't just because they were winning and, 04, there is this element, the Red Sox fans went through their own version of rooting hell for years trying to get that World Series title and the curse. And so when they broke through in 04, you can never replicate that feeling, right? I mean, that was top 3 sports moments for me of all time. But, the way baseball to me has changed since then, and I call it the nerdification of baseball now. I think it's unfortunate.
I like that.
I think it's really unfortunate that everything is about, and I honestly am not trying to be funny. I don't even know the terms: barrel speed and warp speeds and wars and spin rates and spin. And it's not to insult anyone that's really into that, and that's great. But I think in terms of watching a game for 3 hours, I'm a huge sports fan. And I don't give a crap about those things. And I'd like to see action on the field, not just home runs and strikeouts. And I know that's sort of the cliche that people say a lot, like, oh, you don't like baseball because it's home runs and strikeouts. Well, yeah, I like to see stolen bases. I like to see, a hit in the gap and running out plays. And I think baseball's really changed. And I think, and it's not just baseball, it's translated to basketball. But this kind of nerd aspect, and all the GMs I feel like are these like country club, Yale, Ivy League people that are all just implementing their thing on the game. And Theo Epstein even said recently, who was the architect of the 04 team, he even said, man, I wish it hadn't gone to this point. And he was one of the original architects of this type of thing. And he says, yeah, the game has kind of gotten away from us at this point. And so that's why, honestly, deep down, I just can't get into baseball the way it once was.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I actually I want to bring up, quotes from 2 very prominent MLBers, one former, one current, with regards to this topic that really caught my ear lately. Francisco Lindor, who's now a Met, God help him. He said, he had a great quote the other day. He said, look, I'm not against analytics. I'm not against finding a better way to do things. But he said, and this is like an actual quote from him, he said, but brother, if you're going to tell me that, 85% of the time I got to play 2 steps to my left, then I shouldn't be in this game, because if I can't move laterally quick enough to get that ground ball, I shouldn't be playing. And he brings up a great point. He sees both sides of the argument that yes, analytics can be good, but it cannot dictate how the game is played. And I think he hit it perfectly. And then no less than David Ortiz said, the guy with 500 plus career home runs are ruining the game. And if a guy with that sort of pedigree and authority is saying that home runs are ruining the game, then by God, I'm going to believe him.
Hey, I have a question for you. You just mentioned a shortstop that can't move 2 feet to his left. Are we talking about Derek Jeter still? Or
Oh, love it. Love it.
I think we just lost Roz, one of our directors of the podcast here. He's gone. He's frozen and gone.
I'm somehow going to be muted this entire podcast.
Roz is a good sport. Got a smile on his face and the Yankee cap on his head. We can't prevent that. But yeah, but you're right. I mean, it's just it's getting, Darwin, you said it perfectly, the nerdification of the game. It gets to be too much. And I don't want to see this stuff in the middle of a broadcast. And when a guy hits a bomb 450 feet, we can just appreciate it for what it is. The guy hits it, outside of 3 counties. Okay. I don't need to see exit velocity. I don't need to see, these other metrics. If that's something you want to present after the game and do some sort of statistical comparison, fine. But I don't need to see it every time a ball is hit hard. It's too much. It's numbing. To
be completely honest, sometimes it goes against you, because you see a guy who looks like he launched something 7,000 feet into the atmosphere, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, it was 380. Oh, cool.
Fair point.
Sweet.
Fair point.
I don't know. I think it depends on how you want to be a fan. That's what I always go back to. Is if you want to look at that stuff and enjoy it, then feel free. And if you don't, ignore it. Because I think if the Red Sox had a better team, Zook would actually be more excited about this team. But the brass tacks, this team sucks. sucks.
But I would say, Sheely, that it's changing the game because it's used so much. If you know what I'm saying, like it's not.
Well, I don't
just
think it's
ignore it.
I don't think it's the advanced stats as much as it is the three true outcomes: the strikeout, the home run, or the walk. That's what's really killing it. And the launch angle. I mean, that is an advanced.
The launch
stat.
angle is the big one I was trying to think of.
But that's not something the fans are really dictating. That's something that coaches, managers, MIT nerds, like you were talking about. That's something that they're pushing because, it's kind of like, it's similar to the revolution in the NBA of the 3-point shot. The 3-point shot is worth more than a 2-point shot. That's obvious. Everyone knows that. The home run is worth more than a single. Everyone knows that as well. But it's also, you get more money when you hit a home run than you do if you're, just a singles hitter. So it's not just the advanced metrics that the fans and the nerds are going for. It's also the fact that players realize they have the potential to earn a lot more money if they hit 50 home runs a year than they do if they hit 200 hits and 197 of them are singles.
Yeah, well, not if. Yeah, I agree with that, but not if the ratings keep going down, because then their contracts are going to get lower as time goes on. But I agree with your premise, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's removed a certain aesthetic from the game that we all grew up with. And Darwin, you mentioned a couple things at the very top. A guy stretching a single into a double into a triple. Yes, and even the small ball, a guy that can lay down a bunt. It's there is so fewer strategy, so much less strategy now. Because of the three true outcomes of what the game has become. Home run, walk, or strikeout. That's all it is. And it's taken away so much from the game that we've, growing up with. And I almost feel bad for the younger generation that's growing up with, with the game the way it is now, because they've never seen the way it was the way the game was played before. And it's like, well, I guess if you don't know what you're missing, then you can't really miss it because you weren't there. But
let me throw a little wrench. Let me throw a little wrench in that argument, though. So you're saying that the game isn't played the same way it was back then, right? Look at the Red Sox in 2002, 3, 4, 5. They weren't exactly playing small ball. They were pretty much the prototype for what we are seeing now. The difference is those Red Sox teams were amazing for us because we're Red Sox fans. So we're going to be into it no matter what. Honestly, if your team is great, you're going to be into it. If your team sucks, it's a little bit less so. And right now, the Red Sox
agree.
have a terrible, terrible, terrible team, and it's all from trading Mookie Betts. God.
Oh, man, here we go. That one's going to haunt us.
A generational talent, the likes of which few fan bases, few teams have ever seen, and they let him walk.
But yet you didn't seem so angry about Tom Brady going. You won 6 with the team.
Tom Brady's 43 years old. Mookie was 26 or whatever he was. I don't even know.
Brady is a bionic man.
Apparently.
Another fair point. Yeah, this is something that has taken up a lot of bandwidth on our group text over the last couple of years. I just, it sucks. We all agree it sucks. I mean, there's arguments, maybe not strong ones, but arguments made that in the long term it was the best thing to do, because I keep going back to kind of what we said about Brad Stevens and assessing him. There are things we don't see, and I think with Mookie there were things we don't see. There are things that we don't know. There are things that, quite frankly, maybe haven't been made public yet about how he truly felt about being in Boston as a black athlete. I don't want to get too far into this.
You sound like you have inside information, man.
I wish I did, my friend. I wish I did. But I don't. It's like I don't want to think that there was some sort of racial component here. I really don't. But when you look at what happened and what transpired, and why would you trade a generational talent when you have gobs of money, as John Henry does? Why would that happen? To me, there's more behind the scenes that we just don't know. I'm not defending the trade at all. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is I think that there are factors that went into this that just haven't been made public yet, and they may never be. I don't know.
Yeah, and if you look at black players, around the league have said for a long, long time that Boston is a tough place to play. And these are visiting players. Look at what Adam Jones has said in recent years, where he's standing in center field when he's playing for the Orioles, and he's hearing some things that Torrey Hunter too. No one should hear. You shouldn't hear anywhere, no matter where you are. And he's hearing them out in public amongst 37,000 people. That's to say it's embarrassing would be an understatement. And there's a tendency of some Boston Red Sox fans to kind of downplay that and say, oh, no, that's not true. That's an old reputation that the Red Sox have. And hey man, the proof's in the pudding. Adam Jones isn't exactly an old time player that played in the 60s and 70s. He's playing now. So we need to listen to these guys. And you're right. I mean, maybe there is a racial component in there, and that's why he wanted to leave. And for sure, he wanted to leave that last year. He was certainly on his way out. So if at that point, you probably had to make the trade. My fault more in lies the years prior to that. When he was a much younger player, it was evident the talent that he was. They should have tried to lock him up then, and they didn't because they wanted to act like a small franchise, and they're not. They're the second or third or fourth most biggest revenue producing team in the game, and they're not acting like it. And that's the thing that's more insulting to me than anything. Don't cry poor to me when you're making money hand over fist. That's the thing that kills me. And they could have done that earlier on. And now they're saying, oh no, we have to have financial flexibility. Oh no, we can't do this. Let's sign Marwin Gonzalez because he plays 7 positions. None of them very well anymore, but there are 7 positions that man can play. Oh,
he homered twice today, my friend.
Oh, well.
Marwin Gonzalez is on the Red Sox?
Yeah, how about that, buddy?
That's that actually kind of brings me to a fun game. I was hoping to play a game. If you guys are up for it, let me know if you think this is a good idea. But we could play a game. Who's on the Red Sox?
This is a good way to wrap it up, I think. Yeah, try to.
I think so.
Yeah.
This is a good jumping off point here. Can we name what is it? 15? Is that the over under?
No, it's not even that. I don't even want to play an over under anymore. Maybe we could do that after. But the first thing I want to do, and I really want, no offense, Waymire, I want to leave you on the bench right now for this one because I want to pick on my buddy Zook over here.
Gladly.
So I haven't seen you in like a year, Sheely, only on text. So this is your chance to really get at me. Yeah.
I'm gonna say a couple of names, and I want you to tell me Red Sox or not Red Sox.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna start.
I haven't cheated. I didn't look up any Red Sox when you guys said in advance you might ask me who's on the team. So
we'll take it at your word.
That's good. Okay. So I'm gonna start with what I think is an easy one. Matt Andriese.
He's on the team. Didn't they sign him?
He is on the team. Yes, he's a starter candidate, either 6th or 7th pitcher.
I'm not Joe. Oh, that's right, pitcher. I thought he was. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
So we'll give you like 9/10 of credit on that because you didn't know he was a pitcher. That's okay. You knew he was on the team. All right. Jim Corsi.
No. He's a reliever from he's like their bullpen coach now or something, isn't he? I don't know. He was a pitcher for them like in the 2008 or something.
Close. He was 97 to 99. Very good. Former right-handed reliever. Little rotund. He was a little larger than life. He actually
not quite El Guapo, but you know.
I almost put El Guapo on here to see if but I figured that would be too easy.
Should have.
I figured that would be too easy.
I know more about the 2000 to 2010 years. Yeah.
Okay. Ben Ray Lujan.
I have no idea who that is. It sounds like a sunglasses. Ben Ray. I'm gonna say no.
Yeah, you're 3-0 right now. That is a Democratic senator from the state of New Mexico. All right, how about this guy, Alan Shepard?
No.
Oh man, it's hard to trick you, man. He was the first American to travel into space in 1961. This game may not be as good as I thought it was if you're nailing every single one of these. Josh Taylor.
I don't know a Josh Taylor, so I have to be on. I'll say no. I don't know Josh. I mean, that's a pretty common sounding name.
That's our first miss. He's a lefty bullpen arm.
Waymire didn't even know that.
No, I did know that. I knew he was on the team. Come on.
All right. This one I think will be kind of easy, but it's like my favorite name ever. Archimedes Pozo.
Archimedes. What is he hanging out with, like Socrates back in the day? I don't know. An Archimedes. No, I'm gonna say no.
Well, he is a no now, but he used to be. He was an infielder for the Red Sox in 1996 and 1997.
I remember him. Him
Did
and
he
Pork
back
Chop
up
Pew.
Noma?
Yeah, he was a third baseman / second baseman. He was pretty terrible. But, hey, what are you going to do?
Yeah, he backed up Jeff Fry. Remember Jeff Fry back in the day?
Oh,
Yeah.
remember Jeff Fry.
Currently
Steve,
a player
can
agent.
I toss one at him?
Go for it.
All right, Darwin, here we go. Drew McIntyre.
That sounds like a boy band person.
No, he's actually WWE champion, but you got it right regardless. So well done.
He's still smaller than you.
I don't know about that.
Much smaller.
And the last one I had on my list is Mike Rounds.
Mike Rounds?
Yes, Rounds.
He sounds like a slugger. I'm going to say yes. He sounds like a middle of the order slugger.
It does sound like that. He is also a senator from the United States, this time from South Dakota.
How? Come on, South Dakota.
I believe he's a Republican. So I try to go Democrat for the first and Republican for the second. I try to play both sides of the aisle. I'm a man of the people, if you will.
You are Steve Shealy.
You are very diplomatic. That's why you wouldn't curse before. Yeah. Keep it in the middle. I like that.
If my dad listens to this and I get in trouble for cursing, I'd have to blame you. So I'm not going to let that happen.
That's fair. Good point. I like it.
Absolutely. Shealy, well done. Darwin, well done. And fellas, I think that is a good place to wrap up the inaugural Sons of Bellhorn podcast. This was fun. And I just want to note to people out there that at the start of this, we were told, you know what, if you could somehow squeeze 30 minutes out of this, then go for it. We've been talking for 2.5 days?
It feels like it. Who won the Celtics game?
I don't know. I was tracking it until like mid fourth quarter, and I just kind of lost track of it. So.
I've shaved 3 times since this thing has started.
He did. I saw it. Because we can all see each other right now. Guys, this was fun, and my hope is that it's not the last time we do this, because this could be something. The Sons of Bellhorn are coming for you. And we didn't get to the Bruins tonight.
Who is this?
Well, Shealy, the Bruins are
UCLA.
A professional hockey team. No, not those Bruins. No.
My fault.
These Bruins play in Boston. They play on a sheet of ice, and they smack around a little black rubber thing called a puck.
I gotta say, that sounds stupid.
Hey, you love the Whalers. Don't lie. Back in the day, you were Hartford Whalers.
Brass Bonanza, Shealy. You know you got Brass Bonanza as your ringtone. Come on.
I got brass ones, baby.
You do. And on that note, because there's no way I'm topping that line, we're out. For Steve Shealy, for Darwin Zook, I'm Matt Waymeyer. We are the Sons of Bellhorn. We'll see you next time.